And that's the interesting thing. But let's kind of dive into the specifics of the players on this roster, because I think we've set the stage, big picture, what the expectations are. If Notre Dame is going to be a playoff contender in November, the quarterback play is going to have to get better, right? Because you start the season off against Ohio State, you get November, I believe, or Clemson, the first Saturday of November, I believe, is Clemson, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to enter that month with one. If you enter that month with 1-0 losses, you're a playoff contender. Well, then you're tested right then and there by the best or second best team on your schedule. And by then you can maybe say quarterback play. I don't expect Tyler Buchner to win the Heisman in week 1, right? But by the Clemson game, whoever your quarterback is, Tyler Buchner, Drew Pine, whatever, they're going to be in a position where, okay, you've got enough starts under your belt. It's time to get rolling. So big year for the quarterback position. And with the way the game is now, a sophomore quarterback is not now this isn't our year, right? So you can't use that anymore. Look around the country, right?
Yeah. I believe a sophomore quarterback won the Heisman Trophy.
Read the room, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Just
like,
saying.
Can't use that anymore.
No.
So that's going to be an interesting aspect of it. So, Vince, let's dive into the personnel.
Let's
do
this.
And we're going to start. Look, people say, why are you assuming Tyler Buchner is going to win a job? Well, we are, but we think Drew Pine's going to give him a test. But we got to start somewhere. And we're going to start with the guy that we think is the most talented player on the roster at the position, and that's Tyler Buchner. And this is to me, Drew Pine can be a really good quarterback for you. There's no doubt in my mind. I think Tyler Buchner has the potential to be an elite quarterback.
Right.
But he's going to have to get better. So let's first talk about what he brings to the table, what he needs. This will kind of be the format we go, what he brings to the table talent-wise, where he's got to improve as a player, and sort of what the expectations need to be. Or not the expectation, but like what's the pathway between now and the season for him to get where he needs to get to.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we know that Tyler Buchner has the athletic ability and the skills to be an elite quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He can run the ball very effectively. We saw that as a true freshman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him run away from guys. We also saw him get caught by some guys. Okay. So, if we're talking about, there was, what was it? Was it, he had a long run. He got caught from behind. I can't remember what your memory is 1,000 times better than mine is. But
I'm not remembering that.
Okay. Well, I remember he would have had a touchdown, but he got caught from behind at like the 15, 20-yard line, something like that. And I can't remember what it was, but it was still like a 40-yard, 50-yard game.
Right.
So his running ability is clearly right now on January 17th. That's his strength. Okay.
Because of how he was used. Yes.
Because of how he was used. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're going by what we see, right? And we're going off of 1 year of high school ball and then what we saw as a true freshman at Notre Dame. So his running ability is a strength. That's what makes him dynamic, is the fact that he can run the ball. But we also saw the fact that he can throw the ball. Now, what he needs to work on is decision-making in the run game, because there were times where he didn't make the right decision. Now, what I'm saying is,
well, first, before we get there, before we get into what he needs to do better, I want to talk about why we think he's an elite player.
Okay, that's
right?
fine. Okay,
to me, that's really where I want to stick with this for a minute.
Perfect.
Because I think right now the running aspect of it often I kind of feel like in the minds of some people, the running aspect of what Tyler Buchner brings to the table is almost like a criticism. Like, well, he's just a runner, right? Okay, well,
criticism from me.
Well, what I'm referring to though is that, like, well, you can't run him that much because he's going to get hurt, or you can't do this, or it's almost as like him being a runner is somehow a problem in some of the conversations. I think he ran as much as he did because that's what his role was. There was no reason to bring him in the game and have him sit back in the pocket and pick teams apart. That's why you had Jack Cohn as your starting quarterback. But I think what's going to be interesting is I do want to see how Tommy Rees uses that part of his game, because you can't eliminate it. If you're going to take that away from him, then just put Drew Pine in the game, right? And let him sit back and throw it, right? Like, to me, that's a big part of what makes Tyler Buchner special is, yes, I didn't rank him as a 5-star as a junior just because he threw for 4,400 yards and 50-some touchdowns against, not good competition. It was that he did that and he ran for 1,600 yards and 28 touchdowns. It's that dual threat nature that makes him unique. You also cannot, I don't think, put a sophomore quarterback that's barely, 205 pounds in the game and use them like Tim Tebow.
Right.
You can't do that either. So I think how they utilize that is going to be interesting. And, obviously you're going to need to see the read zones, the RPO game. So I think there's aspects of the offense that Tyler Buchner's legs will enhance. I think Tyler Buchner makes the run game better because you have to respect him as a runner. You can't just crash off the backside with Tyler Buchner in the game because there's things that he can do to hurt you.
Because he'll pull it and make
with
you
the pull,
pay for that.
right? And there's different things Notre Dame can do with that. And they have counters off of it too. So like what a lot of teams do with the quarterback like Tyler Buchner, Virginia Tech did this, and I think it was Navy did this. Because Notre Dame didn't really expand the package a whole lot. But what they'll do is you kind of run the read zone and they'll crash the backside linebacker and then crash the backside end and then put the linebacker over top. So he'll actually run with the quarterback read. Well, what Notre Dame can do off of that is when they run their RPO is make it like the triple version of the RPO, which we broke down on the film from last summer. And we use some Brandon Wimbush clips as examples of what this looks like. And what that means is basically, you'll bring that backside tight end to where if that linebacker doesn't run with the tight end and he runs at the quarterback, you're just dumping it off to the tight end on a little slide route, maybe a drag route coming from the backside, maybe some kind of hitch or slant.
You just replace that defender. And there you go. Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, then what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to bring that linebacker to the quarterback, and then they're going to have to bring that backside safety down to try to protect against the throwing game. Well, that's when you do that and you bang a shot over top, right? So the point is, if you're coaching it right, you have counters to all the things you're doing, but here's the point of it. That's a lot of different things defenses have to worry about in regards to defending the backside of a running play, right? That's advantage Notre Dame because if you're having to do that, and this is what we saw in 2017, without a running quarter, without a guy that could throw. Like I think Tyler Buchner is going to be a better passer in 2022 than Brandon Wimbush was in 2017.
Sure.
In my opinion. And I think the weapons around him are going to be better.
Agree with that too.
So you would see Josh Adams rip off these long runs partly because teams were so focused on what Brandon Wimbush was doing backside.
Right.
Well, Chris Tyree is a full 1/10 of a second faster at least than what Josh Adams was. And so because if you really look at Notre Dame's run game the last 2 years, I've heard a lot of people talk about how good Kyron Williams was and all these kind of things, and he was a very good running back for Notre Dame last year. But the interesting thing is his numbers don't really reflect his ability though, because your line wasn't really blocking great, but because you didn't really have a running quarterback. And when I'm talking about a running quarterback, Ian Book's running ability did not help the run game in 2020. It helped the running numbers in 2020.
Right.
But no one was afraid of Ian Book running read zone and pulling.
Right.
That wasn't a part of what they did.
Scrambling. It was that.
And that's not a criticism of Ian Book. That's a play calling observation, right? It's not even a criticism then. But you look at Kyron Williams, this year he averaged 4.9 yards per carry. And last year he only averaged 5.3 yards per carry, which is not good. I mean, consider that Tony Jones in 2019 was almost 6 yards a carry. Well, the thing that hurt the run game is we didn't see a lot of the big plays in the run game that we saw from past years. Even 2018 with Dexter Williams, we would see a lot of big runs. And part of it is because the way that they ran the offense, Vince, teams could really condense the box a lot more because they didn't really run RPOs enough. And because it was you could kind of tell when Notre Dame was going to run it and throw it based on how they lined up and, the way that the tight end lined up and the way that the backs lined up and a lot of those different aspects of it, you kind of get to see an idea of how what they were going to do, generally speaking. So obviously that's something you need to improve upon. But if the line play gets better, which we expect it to, And if the quarterback now is a legitimate running threat, and he only has to do it, here's the thing about it, he only has to do it 3-4 times a game, and
then you
gotta respect it.
You have to.
Now, what that does is now all of a sudden you have less defenders you're inserting. So in the past, when Jack Cohn would do this action, right, you knew the ball was going there, or it was a play action that you could throw deep. Well, what the safeties were allowed to do is the safeties could still eye the box because their read is, okay, you're going to fill the alleys, or you're going to drop underneath a pass or over top of a pass coverage. Well, when you're doing this, they're able to play old school defense in that they can key the guards. And that's going to a lot of times tell you a well-coached team is going to be able to get a sense of play action versus running. And because Notre Dame didn't have an RPO game that attacked down the field, teams could really get aggressive with their safeties in their play action game or in their run game. So you just didn't see a ton of holes for Notre Dame to rip off big runs. And some of the big runs we saw last year required a bunch of missed tackles, right? Broken tackles.
Sure.
And even then, there weren't a lot of those. I mean, Kyron Williams had a 91-yard touchdown run against North Carolina. He still didn't get to 5 yards a carry on the season. I mean, think about that. He was below 5 yards a carry this year. That's not good.
No.
That's not a Kyron. That wasn't a Kyron Williams problem. That was an offensive game plan problem.
Absolutely.
But the point is, they didn't really have that big home run ability. Because once the running back was kind of given that action, it was either a run or a play action, and you defend that differently, a whole lot differently than you're going to defend a quarterback that can pull that sucker and do something with it.
Because if you have to defend the backside, you have to devote a defender there.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Right.
And we've talked about it a million times. Football is a numbers game. And if you can manipulate the numbers, and you can do that because you have to take account for the quarterback, the numbers are now in your favor. So if you're taking somebody that has to defend the backside now, well, that's one less guy that is going to defend inside the box. That's one less guy that's going to have to defend the pass game, right? Mm-hmm. So you're manipulating the numbers depending on how the defense wants to defend the backside. They're either going to pull a linebacker or they're going to drop a safety down or whatever they're going to do. Once you figure out what that is, now you can exploit where they are. And if they don't do that,
and you have counters to it, right?
Exactly. And if
that's what we would see in 2018, Vince, or 2017, and even to a degree 2018 as well, but especially in 2017 is because you had different kind of threats. What in 2017 especially is like how many times did we just see Josh Adams just get through the line and he was just gone?
Right.
Yes, he was fast, but the play that I want to kind of point to everybody, and I may try to find it here on my old YouTube channel, but it's a play against USC. You know what? I'm gonna find it now. Dang it, because now this is really gonna kind of get me kind of fired up because it was a play. It was a play. Here we go. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. This is a highlight video that I put together for Alex Bars back in the day. And see if this pulls up. But what the thing I liked about that, it's right there actually. So I'm gonna pull this thing up. But it was. I want you to watch this play because this is kind of what happens with when you have a quarterback that can run. Okay, I'm gonna pull. So I'm gonna share this, everybody. We're gonna show a little video. Okay, I love when we get to do this. Okay. All right, so this is from the 2017 season, and it's the first play on the highlight. Okay, and I want you to. There's a couple things I want you to watch. Okay, so this is going to be an inside zone play, and they're going to run the back this way. Okay, he's going to cut behind a block by Alex Bars, but I want you to watch the backside defenders and who they're playing as Josh Adams is running. They are not looking at Josh Adams. There's 4 guys not looking at Josh Adams. The backside linebacker. So you watch this guy right here, this guy, and this guy. These 3 guys are all not looking at Josh Adams. So this linebacker right here, this guy that's in motion, this guy right here, this guy's playing man coverage, so he's not. But none of those guys are looking at Josh Adams. Why? because they're worried about Brandon Wimbush. And you can really see it from the tight copy. So, I'm going to show that you can. Okay, so this guy right here, and this guy right here. I want you to watch who they're playing on this. As Notre Dame's running an inside zone play. That is it. None of those guys are looking at Josh Adams. Josh Adams is a Heisman contender at that point in time.
Yeah,
and there's nobody on the screen once he gets to the first line of defense. Why? Because they're worried about the running quarterback. Okay, so to me, and now, first of all, I do want to point out, look, this is a phenomenal block by Alex Bars. Look at him just one-hand muscle this guy into the A-gap. I mean, he just takes him with his right hand and shoves him. This is the kind of physicality Notre Dame has been missing the last 2 years. But look at that.
There wasn't a hole like that all season this year.
Well, and not just because of the line, but because of this right here.
We're right. That's what absolutely.
Right? And so those are the things that when I talk about what a running quarterback, like a mobile quarterback, and I don't want Tyler Buchner to be a running quarterback.
Right.
I want him to be a mobile quarterback. There's a difference. But those are the things that you look at and said, you look at and say, hey, man, boy, if you can add that element to it to where teams have to respect that somebody on that play executed incorrectly. Somebody of the three guys we pointed out was supposed to be filling in that gap to stop the run.
Right.
But they made that mistake because they were worried about Brandon Wimbush, right? And somebody said, Frank Rizzo said, we need some really fast guy. Hey, I hate to break it to you, Frank. And I'm saying this sarcastically, right? Because, you got a dude at running back wearing number 25 that's a full tenth of a second and a half, a tenth and a half a second, however you say that, faster than Josh Adams.
Yes.
And guys like Logan Diggs and Aldrich Estime and Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price is another guy that's going to be a home run threat, in my opinion. Those guys are going to have great opportunities to rip off big plays there. Maybe they don't go for 80 like Josh Adams. Chris Tyree will. Jadarian Price will. Maybe Logan Diggs and Aldrich Estime only go for 50. But like once he got through the line, there was nobody on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that's the whole point. We didn't see that this year. And we haven't seen that from the last couple years because these are guys that it was an offense where the threat of the quarterback run was not there. Now you add more RPO quality to this, and gosh, this is where you start to kind of get excited about what this offense can be. Hopefully Notre Dame continues to enhance the RPO game. But that's really the big thing for me is having Tyler Buchner quarterback would enhance the overall aspects of the run game.
He's an 11th. Wow, that's 6. 11th guy that you have to take account of. I mean, right? I mean, you didn't have to worry about Jack Cohn running. And it's nothing against Jack Cohn. That's just not who he is.
Right. This isn't a fault. This is this is looking at, there are certain things Jack Cohn brought to the offense that Tyler Buchner won't. Sure. This is just more focusing on what that type of ability can bring to an offense.
Right.
Now, you've got to be able to throw the ball, right? And this is the big thing, and that's what hurt the 2017 offense ultimately, is Brandon Wimbush at times couldn't make enough big plays with his arm to win you games.
Yeah,
that ultimately is going to determine whether or not Tyler Buchner is Brandon Wimbush or whether or not Tyler Buchner is one of the elite quarterbacks in college football. And so when I look at this, those are the things that I look for and say, hey, if we talked about what he brings to the table as a runner, if he's going to really be a game changer, he also needs to be able to do damage with his arm. Absolutely. And not just on, RPOs and bootlegs and play actions. That's a bit important part. But Tyler, for this offense to work an elite level, and this is the areas where his game's got to grow, he's got to be able to make, and you were getting ready to talk about it, Vince, make better pre-snap decisions, throw with better timing, which means going through his progressions better, and overall become a better decision maker. The other aspect of it is this is where Tommy Rees comes into play with a lot of that, but also Tyler's mechanics are inconsistent. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets him in trouble. he won't flip his, get his feet set properly, and then the throw goes behind because he's fighting across his body. Well, when you're trying to throw this way and you overstep or you understep, it's going to cause your ball to kind of sail or be too inside. And those are the things Tyler's going to have to work on, which come from repetition. And that's the thing about Tyler is when you look at Tyler Buchner, there's times you're like, boy, that's a really nice throw. And at times you're like, oh, wow, that was not pretty. He's got to get more of the, wow, that was really nice moments. Sure. The consistency of his mechanics and his decision-making are the biggest things. I've seen some practice clips where Tyler Buchner was like, whoo, boy, that was a great throw. And I've seen some practice clips where you're like, okay, that was not good. The consistency aspect is going to determine it. But it's not just a consistency from a decision-making standpoint, Vince. It's going to have to come down to a consistency from a mechanic standpoint.
Sure.
And that, to me, is where the repetitions is going to have the greatest benefit for him. Because in order to get better at it, you got to do it, and you got to do it a lot. And that's where coaching and that people say, what's development? Those things right there, that's quarterback development. It's it's getting them to make consistently better and better pre-snap reads,
right? To
have a grasp of what the defense is doing and knowing where to go through your progressions quick enough to be able to say it's bam, bam, bam. Here's the ball's out, where it's not like, okay, he's open. Now I'm going to start the throwing process. There's a level of, okay, he's doing this. So when I get to the top of my drop, I'm ready to hit it and get that ball out of there. And so those are the things that, yes.
That mental aspect comes with reps too. I mean,
right.
It comes with seeing it every day at practice. It comes with, being the guy. Look, you can get a lot of mental reps when you're watching film and you're not the guy. You can. But when you are the guy, those mental reps are different when you're watching film. Does that make sense? I mean, it just is. Okay.
Especially mechanically.
Yeah.
And Q-Kibbs is trying to get banned here, man. My man said, would Buchner benefit from working with George Woodfield? So he's just trying to, it's a Monday. He's just trying to poke the bear a little bit. Okay, Q-Kibbs, I'm going to write that down. Okay. Q-Kibbs trying to start some stuff. Okay, let me write that down. All right, I got you, Q-Kibbs. Okay. But no, I mean, but those are the things when people say, and somebody asked us in the chat, and I don't know where it was, and we can kind of go back and find it if we need to. But the point of the question was, we hear a lot about development. What does that look like?
Yeah.
That's development right there. It's helping him learn through repetition in the film room, repetition on the field,
right?
What he's seeing pre-snap. That's where it begins.
Yes.
Then that's going to tell you determinatively, hey, this is where I'm reading post-snap. Doesn't tell you where you're going to go with the ball per se. At times it does. Meaning, if I'm lining up and we've got one receiver to the boundary and there's a linebacker tucked inside and a safety that's playing the alley and the cornerback's off, I have a free access throw. I'm catching it and I'm getting it out right now, right? Those are, if I got trips to the field and they've got a defender that's splitting the difference between the number 2 and number 3 receiver, an outside cornerback, and then the safety's deep, we have leverage in numbers, okay? I'm pulling and I'm throwing the bubble right away.
Yep,
right?
You got 2 on 2, and then you make one
right.
miss.
So if a guy throws 30 passes in a game, maybe 5 to 8 of them are those type of throws, okay? Sometimes, 10 to 12, but more often that's going to be like, 8 to 10 of those attempts are going to be that way. All the other ones are, okay, now you got to make some sort of post-snap read. So the pre-snap look is going to tell me, okay, I'm reading this linebacker or the safety. Okay, so, okay, now based on how they lined up, I'm reading the linebacker. So post-snap, I'm getting my eyes on the linebacker. He's going to do this. That's going to tell me if my first read is there or not. Or the safety will tell me that. Or the corner will tell me that, right? Whoever you're in your primary, there's a primary and a secondary read, okay, right, on a pass play. Sometimes even a third read. But to keep it basic, this primary and the secondary read. The primary read is telling me where my read is going to go, right? The secondary read is going to do one of two things. Number one is it's going to tell me if I have to go to my next read. So, the primary read took away my primary route. Okay, so number one is taken by the primary read. So then I get my eyes on the secondary read to find out if I'm going to go to the my number 2 or number 3 target. Okay. Sometimes, though, the secondary read is going to determine, okay, the primary read did this, but I got to make sure that the secondary read's not flying from the backside to pick off my slant route or my post route, right? So there's always parts of that, but that comes from film preparation. But you've got to anticipate that. So like you don't wait on a guy to get open, because if you wait on a guy to get open, and this was Ian Book's big problem, he would wait on guys to get open, then start to throw.
The anticipation.
You've got to be dropping back and saying, okay, the primary read is doing this. My guy's doing this. I know I'm going here with the ball, or I'm already off my target to where I got to hit, gather, go to my second read or my third read, right? You've got to be able to throw with some anticipation. Now, part of the encouragement I've had about Buchner is at times we've seen him do that, Vince. He did that in the spring game. He banged a corner route to Mitchell Evans in the spring game where he was hitting and planting and getting and starting the throwing process as Mitchell Evans was planting that inside foot on a corner route. That's the kind of anticipation you need to see. But then he would do it where he would kind of stare it down and let the corner run underneath it, and the guy would pick it off, right? Like those are parts of because he didn't have his eyes on the secondary read. The primary read told him, look, corner, but the secondary read should have told him something different, right? Those type of things that he's going to have to learn. And if he can learn those things, and that's what development is, then he's going to be effective. All the while training his body to not have to think about his footwork anymore, because you can't be thinking about your footwork. It just has to be natural. It just, it's like if you're a boxer, you're not in the ring thinking about, okay, left, right, that's my feet, it's just but it comes through training.
Exactly.
You've conditioned your body that when I'm throwing to the right, I'm stepping just like this. When I'm throwing to the left, I'm stepping just like this. My hips can't be closed. They can't come flying open. My front shoulder you can't open the gate too early, because if you open the gate too early, then your throwing arm's lagging behind. That's how you lose power and you lose accuracy, right? You also can't keep the gate closed too long, because then you're kind of fighting yourself, right? All those things are part of coaching a quarterback, but all those things are things you can't be thinking about as a quarterback when you're in a game.
Right, exactly.
So that's where practice repetition comes from. And that's the thing that I'm uncertain of with Tommy Rees is my biggest fear with Tommy Rees is I believe Tommy Rees ultimately wants to coach in the National Football League. I think that's where he's looking. I think when you hear him talk about, even when he was talking with us this summer and he mentions coaches, he always mentions NFL coaches, right?
Guys that he looks at and,
NFL is about
studies.
You're not focusing on the fundamentals as much in the NFL.
True.
Because, you do it to a degree, but you expect guys to have some semblance of,
exactly.
Yeah. And this was one of Charlie Weiss's failures. In college, you have to assume your guys don't know a thing, and it's your job to coach them up. Well, that's been an issue at Notre Dame for years on offense. It's the only position that really has been consistently one of fundamentals for a long time was offensive line, because Ed Warner did a pretty decent job with that his first 2 years. And, of course, Harry Hiestand did a great job. And that's part of the reason that they've had some issues in the past. Part of the reason the running back position was so solid is because I do think Lance Taylor is a guy that understood the importance of fundamentals, as you were talking about yesterday. Things like stiff arm and proper ball placement. One of the biggest beefs I had, even under Coach Alford, but especially under Autry Denson, was they would just run right-handed or left-handed all the time.
Right.
And so if I'm right-handed, if I'm running right-handed and I'm running to my left, right, where the sideline's to my left and the push to my right, I have no stiff arm ability.
Right.
Because my not only that, I've put the ball closer to the defense. I'm a believer that
that's amazing.
We put the ball in your outside arm.
We learned that
some running back coaches don't believe in that.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and you can go see that during Autry Denson's tenure. It drove me nuts. But Lance was great at that. But it's also about knowing when to do the transition. And when to put it in the left
when you're
arm.
going through the line. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right.
But receiver, we didn't see good technique. Quarterback has not been really good with technique for years. It's just, it hasn't been a sound position because it's been so focused on scheme. Scheme is not going to be why Tyler Buchner is effective or not. It's going to be about, can you teach the fundamentals? Can you teach him how to play? Can you focus? Can you put more emphasis on the footwork, the mechanics on a day-to-day basis than you have in the past? Especially the last couple of years, because he's had a fifth-year senior or a senior at quarterback each of the last 3 years. where, you're not focused as much on the fundamentals aspect of it. Well, you don't have that now. And if you really want this kid to be successful, that has to be more important to you than anything right now. And that's going to be the key for whether or not Tyler Buchner is going to be able to be successful next season is, can his position coach understand the importance of really honing in on the mechanical aspects of it beyond the great scheme? Because if you're running a great scheme, but Tyler Buchner's can't set his feet properly, don't get mad at him when he's missing throws that you schemed up incredibly well. It's your job to make sure that part gets there first. And, with a kid like Tyler Buchner, great mechanics and talent is going to carry you with mediocre scheme. But great scheme can be hindered by not having players that can play the game the right way. If Tommy Rees can combine those two things and have really good scheme with really fundamentally sound players, especially quarterback, then this offense can go crazy next year. I truly believe that.
There's a lot of talent around Tyler Buchner. A lot of talent and a lot of really good coaching surrounding the quarterback position. And if they can get him right, then yeah. I mean, I really like where things could go with the quarterback position. I really, really do. And I think the trajectory is headed in the right direction. But you're right. All the questions that we have about quarterback development are going to be answered in this offseason and during the season.
To a degree, yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to be able to watch game one and be like, can't develop quarterback. But there's going to be some things that we can pull from game one. And there's things that we can be able to pull from the spring game and all of those different things.
Right.
But
then seeing how they develop throughout the season.
Exactly.
I don't expect Tyler Buchner or Drew Pine to be a finished product by game one.
Right.
But we need to see steady growth.
Right.
And that's going to be the key. So what can Tyler Buchner be, right, as a sophomore? I mean, to me, there's no reason he can't be a game changer this year. Now, as a sophomore, there's going to be mistakes you're going to have to live with. He's going to throw some bad picks. He's going to hit a dude right in the chest on defense. I promise you, it may be the opener. He's going to drop back and hit some dude right in the chest
100%.
Because he just didn't see it. Didn't see the secondary read. It's going to happen. That comes with experience, right? But I'm willing to live with that if he's also then going out there and making the big time plays. And what does that mean? Okay, it means making big plays within the framework of the offense first and foremost. It means making the right read on the read zone. It means making the right read on your throws. It means, hitting that RPO quick slant and getting that to your receiver and letting him go run with it, right? That may, I just do a slant route. Receiver did all the work. Yeah, I know. I get that. That's great because that's the talent they have. But he read it out. He made the right read. He threw accurately.
Right place to put
those
the ball.
Kind of things, right?
I mean,
being able to he's going to have to be able to be more effective getting the ball down the field, right? He's going to have to hit some post routes. He's going to have some go routes. He's going to have to hit some of those backside seams like we've seen him do on the go route and the backside seam. Then he's going to have to be able to be a playmaker off script. And that's going to be the part of it too. So is you're dropping back to pass, nothing's there, take off, run, and go do something with it, right? It's getting more of those plays and over the course of the year, limiting the ones where you're like, yep, young dude, mistake. And the great players make mistakes. They always do. The great players don't make them a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh time. That's the key.
Right. They learn from it.
Right. And that's the development piece. The development piece is, he threw a pick and didn't light up Ohio State the way you would hope he would. Okay. That's not determinative of what he's going to be. It's okay. Sure. Does he make those same mistakes again the next week and then the next week and then the next week? That's going to be the key. And that's development, in my opinion. So if they do that, then I think he's going to have a chance to be a special player. I mean, I'm not going to get into statistical breakdowns of what that's going to look like, but it's a guy that can hurt you as a pocket passer, as a passer on the run, as a guy that can do things with his legs when things break down, and as a guy that can do things with his legs within the framework of the offense. I think he can make plays in all those areas, and there aren't a whole lot of quarterbacks that can do that. And that's why it's important, in my opinion, to get him ready to go, because I do think he can be special, right? If he's